I'm Lisa Aiken, and I'm the Agency Director for the South Carolina State Library, and we welcome you here this evening. Thank you for joining us. The South Carolina State Library is honored to be the 48th annual May Hill Arbuthnot lecture host. We feel an even greater privilege, especially this year, with Ms. Jacqueline Woodson as the chosen lecturer. Ms. Woodson's writings have a way of transporting us back in time to experience the events of a life lived, the joys and the sorrows. Even the things that we often don't speak of, she does. Not only does she speak of them, she brings events and people to life through her prose. In Hair Night, featured in Brown Girl Dreaming, Woodson writes of her sister reading to her. As my sister reads, the pictures begin forming as though someone has turned on a television, lowered the sound, pulled it close, grainy, black and white pictures coming slowly at me, deep, infinite, remembered. Miss Woodson's writings do this very thing. They are remembered. The humanness and openness of her writings reach into a space that is intensely private at times, tucked away completely and forgotten, only to be resurrected through the lines that she so thoughtfully placed together. Her writings also serve as a reminder of the way that it was, and of the courage, strength, and dignity of those who came before us, of their commitment, tenacity, and pride, lest we forget. Please join me in welcoming Nina Lindsay, who is the president of the Association for Library Services to Children.
Good evening. I am Nina Lindsay, and I'm very proud to be the president of ALSC, the Association for Library Service to Children. I welcome you to the 2017 May Hill Arbuthnot Lecture as we gather to consider the vital importance of stories and libraries for all children today. Thank you to the South Carolina State Library for hosting this event, and to those of you sharing and spreading the word online on Twitter using hashtag Arbuthnot 2017. And the Wi-Fi network down here is USC guest. Lovers of children's literature have gathered for this prestigious lecture since 1969 as a tribute to its namesake, an esteemed author, editor, critic, anthologist, and editor, originally from Mason City, Iowa. These lectures have been given by familiar names such as Maurice Sendak, Virginia Hamilton, Walter D. Myers, Brian Selznick, and Pat Mora. If May Hill Arbuthnot's name doesn't ring the same bell for you as these, you may know to thank her for the wonderful Arbuthnot Anthology of Children's Literature, with a selection of the best children's fiction and nonfiction from around the world, for her textbook, Children and Books, or for the iconic Dick and Jane Reader series for which she was a co-author. Each upheld children's joy, imagination, and curiosity in story as crucial to their success as readers. Every year invites an author, critic, librarian, historian, or teacher of children's literature of any country to prepare and present a paper considered to be a significant contribution to the field of children's literature. The duty of selecting this individual, as well as the site for the lecture, falls to a committee of the Association for Library Service to Children, and this year's committee members are Ellen Hunter Ruffin, Chair, University of Southern Mississippi, Hattiesburg, Mississippi, Barbara A. Janko, Brooklyn, New York, Jessica Tackett McDonald, Boston Public Library, Susan Person, Mamie Dowd Eisenhower Public Library, Broomfield, Colorado, and Daniel A. Shapiro, Brooklyn Public Library. I'm now pleased to welcome Ellen Hunter-Ruffin, Chair of the Committee, to introduce our distinguished guest for the 2017 Mayhill Arbuthnot Lecture.
Thank you, Nina. She's back there. It is my honor to introduce Jacqueline Woodson this evening. As stated earlier, the 2017 Mayhill Arbuthnot Committee was tasked with selecting an honor lecturer to present a paper significant to the field of children's literature. The task comes with a built-in cheat. The selected lecturer is usually someone who has already had an impact in the world of children's literature. And Jacqueline Woodson is no exception. In fact, she's prolific. Her work is widely celebrated for its elegant, immersive presentation of engaging subjects, usually focused on the African American experience. The author of more than 24 books for young readers, she's a 4-time Newbery Honor recipient, a Seibert Honor recipient, and a 2-time Coretta Scott King Award winner. She's received the 2014 National Book Award for her New York Times best-selling memoir, Brown Girl Dreaming. A 3-time National Book Award finalist, her adult title, Leaving Brooklyn, was shortlisted in 2016. She's now serving on the fiction jury of the National Book Award while completing her term as the Young People's Poet Laureate for the Poetry Foundation. She's busy. However, for all the accolades, a crucial aspect of her work is to her dedication in children's literature. Throughout her career, Jacqueline has shown an unflagging commitment to representing the lives of young people whose ethnicities, socioeconomic, or cultural backgrounds have been historically underrepresented. It is this impact that I experienced firsthand with young patrons who were looking for themselves in pages and, yes, even on the covers of books they read in the library and in their classrooms. When I was a high school librarian many years ago, a regular young patron I knew named Tanisha would stop by the school library to peruse the stacks, find books, complete assignments, and talk with me. She was definitely a library kid. We became friends. One day she turned to me and said, "I want a black book." I joked with her and pulled a book out with a black cover and handed it to her. She rolled her eyes at me. I then pulled out a cover of the copy of Hush. Tanisha eyed the cover where a pensive young female black protagonist was featured prominently. She smiled and went on her way. From there on out, it was a Jacqueline Woodson love fest. She would return a book, get another one, and we would discuss the various titles. I knew those books had hit the mark, and I am grateful, selfishly so. Jacqueline Woodson provided me with the tools to do my work. Jacqueline's work is transformative. Her work helps children realize themselves, gives them voice. And as I introduce Jacqueline to you, I also want to say a personal thank you. Thank you, Jacqueline, for thinking of the children and young adults who need to know someone is listening. Thank you, too, for giving librarians quality literature, something we can count on. Ladies and gentlemen, and all who are gathered here with us this evening, please join me in welcoming Jacqueline Woodson to the stage.
Y'all made it. It's such an honor to be here. giving the Mayhill Arbuthnot lecture. I want to thank the ALSC committee for choosing me, and I want to thank the South Carolina Association of School Librarians for helping make this happen and for getting me here. And I want to thank my family, of course, that's back at home, burning up my phone. So I'm happy to have turned it off so that my kids are not tattling on each other while I'm trying to get myself ready for a talk. It's just such an honor to be back home in South Carolina. When I found out that I had been awarded this lecture, one thing that happens with it is you don't know where you're going to end up, right? People submit proposals and then you go to give a lecture where you end up, where whoever wins. And I was very grateful that it was South Carolina. I would have been more grateful if it was Brooklyn, New York. Then I wouldn't have had to leave home, but it is what it is, and I'm glad to be in my second home, South Carolina. Before I start the talk, and I had to write. I never write talks. I usually just get up and start speaking. And for this, because it gets published, you have to write a talk. And so you have to plan kind of months and months out, or if you're me, weeks out, and come up with first the title that you present earlier on, and then eventually the talk, what you give, and then it's published. So you really do have to write something. You can't kind of skate around this thing. And so I was thinking, when I give talks, I never know who my audience is going to be, so I never know what the energy is going to be in the audience, and if I'm going to say something that's just completely whack and has nothing to do with the audience, and that's why I don't write them. But I'm also paying attention to what's happening in the world and thinking about that. So I did write a talk, but before I give it, I want to read Showay to pay homage to South Carolina, my first home. And for those of you who don't know, I'm originally from Greenville. When Suni's great-grandma was 7, she was sold from the Virginia land to a plantation in South Carolina without her mom or pa. But with some muslin her mom had given her and 2 needles she got from the big house and thread dyed bright red with berries from the chokecherry tree. In South Carolina, Big Mama raised Suni's great-grandma, raised most of the slave children on that large patch of land. At night, Big Mama told the children stories she'd tell in a whisper about children growing up and getting themselves free. And the children leaned in and listened real hard. And in the daytime, when there was a few minutes for a slave to rest a bit, Big Mama taught Suni's great-grandma to sew colored thread into stars and moons and roads that slave children grew up and followed. Late in the night, a piece of the quilt and the true moon lead them. Years passed. Big Mama moved on to the next world, and Suni's great-grandma grew up. Jumped room with a young man named Insla, had herself a baby girl, named that girl child Mathis May. Loved that baby up, so yeah, she loved that baby up. And one day Mathis May would be Suni's grandma, but not for a long, long time yet. In the meantime, she learned to sew. Beautiful girl child, learned to sew. When Mathis May was 7, she got sold away. Took a star from her mama's blanket, took a little piece of the road, pressed it to her face when she wanted to remember back home, held it to her heart to feel back home. Had herself some thread and a piece of muslin and some thread somewhere, and kept up her sewing. Sewed so fine she was making clothes for everyone in the big house, and slaves too. And at night she sewed stars and moons and roads, tiny patch pieces of stars and moons and roads. Slaves whispered what no one was allowed to say. That Mathis knows how to make a showing. Came to her when they needed to talk, came to her for the stories of brave people, came to her for the patch pieces just before they disappeared in the night. But Mathis May stayed on, grew tall and straight-boned, jumped room with another slave. That slave was killed running off to the north side of the war. months before. He got to meet his baby, a girl child who was born free that same year, 1863. History went and lost her name, but years later, Suni came. Suni's mama held her up in the moonlit night, showed her the stars, the moon, whispered in her ear, "There's a road, girl, there's a road." Loved that Suni up so, yeah, she loved that Suni up. Suni and her mama stayed on the land they'd always known, picking cotton for a little pay and a piece of that ground to farm. Called that land home, stayed on with other people, none of them slaves anymore. Hard work making a life from pink day to blue black night, but it was a free life just the same. And when the day was finally over, it wasn't hard to find a thing or two to smile about. And at night, they cut and sewed strange lines and odd designs. People said about Suni, that child could find some beauty in so many things. When Suni was 7, she was tall and straight-boned like her mama, took in wash with her mama, sewed stars on patch pieces, sewed stars and moons and roads, sewed fields and rivers and trees, patched the pieces together for her mama to sell come market day, call those quilts Trail to the North. All those quilts, Showay. Didn't much need that secret trail to the north anymore, but started living well off the money those quilts brought in. Sold those quilts to live, sold those quilts to remember. And though some could book read, most could not. Stars and moons and roads, picture reading was what they'd always known. Some morning, Suni looked out over the fields of cotton and dreamed of a place to call her own. Married a man named Walter Scott, who owned a bit of land in Anderson, South Carolina. Had herself a baby girl and named that girl child Georgiana. Loved that baby up, so yeah, they loved that baby up. Georgiana, who grew tall and straight-boned and free, picking out words from her mama's Bible by 3, reading by oil lamp at age 5. People said about Georgiana she always had a book in her hand. Grew up to teach at a small school in Anderson, had herself 2 girls at once and named them Carlene and Ann. Love those babies up, so yeah, love those babies up. And Carlene and Ann grew up tall and straight-boned, turned 7 walking in a line to change the laws that kept black people and white people living separate. They were a little scared sometimes with pinned inside their dresses with Showay patches Grandma Suni had given them. And something about those patches made Scared hang his needle head and walk away. Anne grew up writing poems, and sometimes she made those poems into songs. Carlene stitched those songs into art that people bought to hang on their walls. And Anne had me, and Mama loved this baby up, so yeah, she loved this baby up. And when I was 7, I didn't have to work in a field or walk in any freedom lines, but I still read like Georgiana and wrote like Anne, and when the words were slow in coming, I sewed. Stars and moons and roads into quilts and curtains and clothes, because Mama said all that stuff that happened before you were born is your own kind of showway. There's a road, girl, my mama said. There's a road. And I grew up tall and straight-boned, writing every day, and the words became books that told the stories of many people's showways. Had myself a baby girl and named that girl child Toshi Georgiana. Love that Toshi up, so yeah, I love that Toshi up. So some mornings I start all over, holding tight to little Toshi. I whisper a story that came before her. Now Suni was your great-great-grandma, I said. And when Suni's great-grandma was 7. I feel like Showay is my homage to South Carolina, and kind of like an opening prayer for anything I do, because I know I wouldn't be here if it weren't for the people who came before me. There is a balm in Gilead to make the wounded whole. There is a balm in Gilead to heal the sin-sick soul. What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? or fester like a sore and run? Does it stink like rotten meat or crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Maybe it sags like a heavy load, or does it explode? Langston Hughes. It is April 1st, 2017, and I stand before you on this first evening of National Poetry Month as someone's mom, someone's daughter, someone's life partner, another woman's grandchild, niece, cousin, friend. I stand before you as a poet, a novelist, a gatherer of memories. I stand before you with all of my many selves in one place, South Carolina, a place I have always loved, have always called home. But it is a home that, like millions of African Americans, I left a long time ago. So many of us know the story, how from the early 1900s to the mid-1970s, millions of us left the only home not only we, but our ancestors could ever remember knowing. We left by train, riding in Jim Crow cars, until we were far enough north that there were no Jim Crow cars. We left in overburdened secondhand station wagons. We scraped money together and bought tickets on Greyhound buses. We left in the cover of the night, sometimes for fear of getting found out. We told no one we were going. When he was in his 20s, my great-uncle Thomas left South Carolina. He moved to the Upper West Side of Manhattan, drove a rented medallion cab until he was able to buy his own medallion, which for those of you who don't know, is a literal medallion that gets placed on a taxi that one owns. The difference being more money gets made, more job flexibility and security as you are then your own boss. My great-uncle had left the South in the cover of night. He had been accused of mouthing off to a white boss, or maybe looking at a white woman, or maybe it was defending himself against the beating by a white man. And as the story goes, the lynch mob was on its way. Why do I say as the story goes? The story of my great-uncle was one that remained whispered, or worse, only alluded to. It was a story cradled in PTSD. The people who fled were afraid of what had happening again. So while the adults tried to hold on to their history, that history was often too painful to say out loud. While they tried to give us lessons in survival, there were so many words and stories they were afraid to tell. So the stories were side-mouthed as in, well, we know about that white man and Uncle Thomas, and Thomas was Thomas before he fled the South, and shoot, he'd be hanging from a rope. They were coming for him, not driving a taxi if. With the help of relatives, Thomas was able to escape the South, change his name, and start a new life. As a child, I knew only shadows of this story. Mostly I knew Uncle Thomas as my rich uncle living on the posh Upper West Side of Manhattan. He had made it. He had escaped with his life. So many didn't. Between 1882 and 1963, 3,446 Black people were lynched in the South. They were men, they were boys, they were young women. 15 lynchings happened in Greenwood, South Carolina, 14 in Aiken, 13 in Barnwell, 11 in Lawrence, 10 in Colleton, 9 in Florence, 9 in York, 8 in Lexington, 8 in Orangeburg, 6 in Edgeville. My uncle had lived in Aiken, where the state's second highest number of lynchings took place. On lynching days, crowds gathered to watch Black people hang from trees. They drank beer, smoked cigarettes, photographed themselves with their children on their shoulders, smiling beside the hanging bodies. and so we fled. We each wore our one good outfit, loved and had it. We packed our own food for the journey. There was often nowhere for us to stop on the way, no bathrooms we were legally allowed to use, no restaurants in which we were allowed to eat. And even if there were, the money we'd saved for the trip and for the promise that awaited us at the end of the journey, the money we saved was for the trip and for the promise that awaited us at the end of the journey, a deep freedom we could imagine, finally. Still, if we were lucky, tucked inside our purses or slipped inside our suit coat pockets was a copy of the Green Book, or rather, as it was officially titled, the Negro Motorist Green Book. First published by Victor H. Green in 1936, the book listed hotels, restaurants, nightclubs, barber and beauty shops, tourist homes and gas stations from Alabama to Wyoming, where it was safe for us to stop. Here in Columbia, the list was long, from tourist homes on Wayne and Pine Streets to Holman's Barbershop and Count's Drugstore. Safe places. My Uncle Thomas passed away in March. Only now that he is gone do I feel safe enough to tell this story. I wear memory like a warm coat protecting me from the deep chill of erasure. My mother's been dead for 8 years now. My grandmother long gone too. Still, they are with me in memory. The soft lilt of the words curling from their mouths as the South reminded them again and again, y'all can leave me, but I will never leave y'all. This I remember. Their feet like my own would become one day, were planted, one in each world. This I remember. I was a child when my mother first went to investigate New York City. Its list of places in the Green Book, long and inviting as a southern breeze. My siblings and I stayed behind with our grandparents. My mother would return for us. We knew, we hoped. This I remember. A year ago, I wrote this poem, The Great Migration. I knew the story long before I knew the reason for my mother leaving South Carolina. Her black pumps, leather and new, bought a size too small, a sale or vanity. She's gone now, too late for the asking. One shoe and then the other and then, the first again and then, small steps. Onto a bus already filled with the leavers, people heading north from a South Carolina slipping like silk from their mouths. Y'all got people up there and where y'all planning on staying and the quiet yes ma'ams from the children. New York, a dream in the palms of sweaty hands, the pinch of too tight shoes. A fierce wave, goodbye to old Jim Crow. I knew the story long before I knew the story. My mother's brown hands on her purse, her 3 children left behind for now, her forehead pressed against the Greyhound window. I don't know the story. Never asked, did you ever consider not coming back for us? It was a story I didn't want to know. How did she come to believe in a place she'd never seen? When did she know that home wasn't home anymore? I thought I knew the story. But for a moment, let's return to old Jim Crow. After Lincoln's death in 1865, we got President Andrew Johnson. Enslavement was over. Lincoln had been trying to do some things to help Black folks out. Johnson wasn't having it. He supported white supremacy in the South. And with this support, the conditions of slavery were all but restored. See, Andrew Johnson, like a lot of the old boys, had this idea that under enslavement, America was a great place. And he had plans, big plans. My man was thinking, well, maybe he'd make America great again. I knew the story long before I knew the story. President after president after president refused to endorse anything related to the civil rights of African Americans, allowing Jim Crow and the Ku Klux Klan to thrive. In 1935, an anti-lynching bill was met with a 6-day gentleman's discussion before it died. What was discussed by these gentlemen? How did they not see that fathers and brothers and sons and uncles and grandfathers and mothers and daughters were being ruthlessly, violently killed? How did they not see us? So the status quo remained by this so-called gentleman's agreement up until the decade that I was born. And this is from Brown Girl Dreaming, February 12, 1963. I usually let the audience have a moment to think she was not born in 1963, but now I think I'm starting to finally look my age. And I'm blaming it on those children. And I'm just reading a section from it. I was born as the South explodes. Too many people, too many years enslaved and emancipated, but not free. The people who look like me keep fighting and marching and getting killed, so that today, February 12, 1963, and every day from this moment on, brown children like me can grow up free, can grow up learning and voting and walking and riding wherever we want. If my grandmother was still alive, today would be her birthday. She was born April 1st, 1914, or 1915. She claimed my Aunt Lucindy was older. My Aunt Lucindy claimed my grandmother was older. They were both vain, and because they were very close in age, even into their 70s, they possessed a fierce sibling rivalry. My grandmother had left the South and Aunt Lucindy had stayed. Aunt Lucindy, like so many cousins and aunts and uncles, never once came to visit us in New York City. But most summers we returned to South Carolina, and as newly forming city children, my siblings and I suffered under the ridiculing we got from our Southern peers. They thought we talked too fast and were snobby. They couldn't believe my sister thought herself cute. In Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye, when the other kids try the character Maureen Peel and tell her that she thinks she's cute, she says, "I am cute." My sister was academically brighter than most kids her age in both New York City and South Carolina. It was just a fact we lived with, and if you were me, a child who was so not excelling academically, you just walked through your life with this information, being as deeply understood as the color of your own hair. But the kids back home in South Carolina were having none of it. When my sister, like Morrison's Maureen Peel, said, "I am cute," some grown women had to pull those children off my sister. As a child, I didn't understand who we were to the children of the South. We were other in what we thought was our own hometown. In our grandparents' house, our candy lady's house, our dime store and fabric store in Kingdom Hall, we had left, and with us, we had taken our own belonging. We had also taken our religion with us to New York City. And as I grew older and moved from the world of South Carolina to the world of Brooklyn and then back again, I began to internalize a deep and important lesson from the religion I was being raised inside of. I was in the world, but I wasn't of the world. And from this vantage, I began to understand the deeper truths about this place. There were those who left and those who stayed. Years later, when the Great Migration would be named as a movement, as the names of those who were children of the Great Migration were ticked off, from Michael Jackson to Michael Jordan, from James Baldwin to James Brown, from Davis to Dunbar, I was proud to be both of a people who left and of a people who stayed. Proud to have been part of a movement that literally changed the genetic makeup of this country. And proud to be of a people who knew that here in the South was where their work was needed. My Aunt Lucindy stayed, and so did my Uncle Bertie, and Aunt Annie Mae, and Cousins Sam and Janice and Michael. The list goes on. They stayed and they fought. It is a question I ask myself daily now. Do I stay in this country and fight for those who can't leave? Or do I leave for the safety of myself and my family? What would I have done in the 1960s? What will I do now? Only a few years after my Uncle Robert arrived in New York City, he was locked up for a crime I never knew. It would have been worse in South Carolina, my grandmother would say again and again. He would have been on the chain gang. Years and years before I understood that my uncle was walking, as my grandmother called it, the wide road. I'm sorry, I just messed up. See, that's the thing about these written speeches. Because I skipped this whole line. Okay, next time I have to write a speech, the font's gonna be bigger. Years and years before I understood the school-to-prison pipeline, or prison privatization, or mass incarceration, I understood that my uncle was walking, as my grandmother called it, the wide road. In both Greenville and New York, he hung out with beautiful black men I was always crushed out on, who wore wide-brimmed hats and were always asking each other for a little taste of that, whatever that was in the silver flask appearing from back pockets. They shot dice, which was against every rule our family had ever written, and trust me, in my family, there were a lot of rules. Played cards, another no-no. My uncle and the guys he hung out with would probably be rappers today, or spoken word artists, or they may have been coders or dot-commers, just doing something in business that made a lot of money, but was only legal because of some capitalist loophole in the government. Well, my uncle was born in a different place and time. So often I celebrate this moment that I'm in now. Even with the hardship of it, I know each of us is exactly where we need to be, and in the body we need to be in for the work that has to be done. For my mother, what she didn't know was that she was creating a writer. From Ohio to Greenville to Brownsville to Jamaica Queens to Bushwick and back to Greenville again, I was moving through the world, watching the people in it, listening hard for the stories hidden inside the fear of telling the story. This is from Brown Girl Dreaming. Halfway home, number 1. New York, my mother says, soon I'll find us a place there, come back and bring y'all home. She wants a place that is her own, that is not the Nelsonville house, the Columbus house, the Greenville house. Looking for her next place, our next place. Right now, my mother says, we're only halfway home. And I imagine her standing in the middle of a road, her arms out, fingers pointing north and south. I want to ask, will there always be a road? Will there always be a bus? Will we always have to choose between home and home? My mother looks back on Greenville. After our dinner and bath, after our powdered and pajama bodies are tucked 3 across into bed, after Winnie the Pooh and kisses on our foreheads and longer than usual hugs, my mother walks away from the house on Hall Street, out into the growing night, down a long dusty road to where the Nickeltown bus takes her to the Greyhound station. Then more dust, then she's gone. New York ahead of her, her family behind. She moves to the back, her purse in her lap, the land, pulling her gaze to the window once more, before darkness covers it, and for many hours there are only shadows and stars and tears and hope. The last fireflies. We know our days are counted here. Each evening, we wait for the first light of the last fireflies catch them in jars, then let them go again, as though we understand their need for freedom. As though our silent prayers to stay in Greenville will be answered if we do what we know is right. Changes. Now the evenings are quiet with my mother gone, as though the night is listening to the way we are counting the days. We know even the feel of our grandmother's brush being pulled gently through our hair will fast become a memory. Those Saturday evenings at her kitchen table, the smell of Dixie peach hair grease, the sizzle of the straightening comb, the hiss of the iron against damp, newly washed ribbons, all of this may happen again, but in another place. We sit on our grandparents' porch, shivering already against the coming winter, and talk softly about Greenville's summer, how when we come back, we'll do all the stuff we always did, hear the same stories, laugh at the same jokes, catch fireflies in the same mason jars, promise each other future summers that are as good as the past. But we know we are lying. Coming home will be different now. This place called Greenville, this neighborhood called Nickeltown, will change some, and so will all of us. In the early 1970s, my younger brother, along with hundreds of other economically poor young people of color in this country, were poisoned by lead-based paint. Today, history is repeating itself with the water in Flint, Michigan. During the Jim Crow era, they came for people of color via our bathrooms. Today, they're coming for our trans sisters and brothers via bathrooms again. Our water, our air, our land, our bodies. This is what the Great Migration has taught me, that the strength of all people lies in our ability to both leave for better opportunity and stay to fight. From the time I was a young child, I always loved stories, the way they empower both the teller and the listener, how they allow us to leave the world and float right back down into it, but different somehow, wiser, freer. For myself, fiction has always been a way to ask questions of the world. Through my own writing and through the writers I've read, I am grateful to all of you for being here, for showing up, for leaving, for staying. I am grateful for all of our particular bodies working together at this moment in time. Recently, I began a new book about a boy, his two brothers, and his single dad. It's a collection of poems, and I don't know what else it is. When I write, I often don't know where the book is going to take me. Like my mother, I get on the bus and hope for the best on the other side. And like so many who came before me, I'm grateful for the opportunity to have the journey. So this is from my forthcoming novel, Something There. In the early evening, the house has a certain light, slanting in through the dark wood blinds. It hits the couch, then slides across the floor. Bright gold it is, and then is orange, and finally silver gray, then gone. You watch your father on the couch in that light, watch from the doorway. The baby asleep across his lap, his tiny arms dangling over one leg, his tiny feet the other. The nap is a good one, your father softly snoring, the baby sighing deep from the back of his baby throat. And the light like a cover over them, darkness coming on. This is the room where your mother pulled you into her lap, kissed the top of your head a million times until you laughed so hard your stomach hurt, until you begged, then demanded that she stop, and see how the light wraps everyone up now, in sleep, in dreams, in memory. how the light moves like a hand, are your mother's long gone eyes over all of you. Without memory, our existence would be barren and opaque, like a prison cell into which no light penetrates, like a tomb which rejects the living. If anything can, it is memory that will save humanity. For me, hope without memory is like memory without hope. I wish it was me who wrote that. It wasn't. It was the Romanian-born Nobel laureate, political activist, Holocaust survivor, deeply thoughtful, Elie Wiesel, an immigrant. Let us remember that we are living in a time and in a country where people in powerful positions are telling us not only to ignore what is real in the present, but forget what existed in the past. If anything can, it is memory that will save humanity. Let us remember that we live in a country that was built on the blood of Black bodies and poor white bodies, a country that was swindled away from our First Nation brothers and sisters. Let us remember that we are walking through a history where Black bodies were traded alongside cotton and tobacco and gold. And let us remember the blood in our veins has a history of resistance running through it. From Emmett Till to Trayvon Martin, let us remember. From the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham to the Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church in Charleston, let us remember. From the March on Washington 1963 to the Women's March on Washington 2017, let us remember. From Abraham to Obama, from Johnson to this one, let us remember. For those who came before us, and for the young ones coming behind, let us remember, and more than anything, let us continue to be a balm. So now we are taking some time for questions, and nothing you can ask me is wrong. I just want to put that out there. So you can ask me about anything. And I'm leaving tomorrow, so now's your chance. And there's a microphone in the audience if you just raise your hand.
is a huge fan of yours.
Say it again?
My niece is a huge fan of yours, as am I. She wasn't able to come this evening, but she met me once, and it was like the greatest day. I wanted to ask you, what do you have to say to all the little white girls who look up to you and kind of get what they're learning from you?
And kind of what?
Get what they're learning from you.
Oh, it's a good question. I say thank you. You know, I think that the work that we have to do in this country is the work that spans races, that spans economic classes, that spans, gender identities and sexual identities. Like, we're all in this together, and I think, thank God for the woke little white girls who know that they're a part of the continuum of this work. So I'm just grateful for them.
Hello, my name is Kalina Hammock, and reading about your history, our lives kind of flipped. I was born in Brooklyn, New York, and moved to South Carolina as a child. So listening to your stories, kind of, especially with the talking about my accent and I talk too fast, that brought a lot of stuff home. My question is, as a children's book author, and one of my stories about growing up in Brooklyn and coming back to South Carolina, I hung out a lot at the Brooklyn Public Library. When we came to Columbia, the library was on Sumter Street. It was a little small building, and so when we first got here, I said to my mother, well, is this a branch? Where's the big library that I used to? With the changing of more people reading stuff online and you're not, getting that book, do you feel that as a writer and as a children's book writer that you feel more strongly to make more books so people can have something in their hand to read besides a computer? I'm old school, I want a book in my hand, but with the changing technology, it just seems like a lot of the libraries that we grew up with are kind of getting, well, not ours in Richland County, but a lot of the libraries, unfortunately, are not getting the funding that they're needing, and they're not getting people to go in there. But, do you see that now that you live in Brooklyn?
So I actually live pretty close to the Grand Army Plaza, the main big branch I think you're referring to. And one thing I noticed about that library, and also the library in my neighborhood, which is Park Slope, and also the library in the neighborhood I grew up in, which was Bushwick, is those libraries are always packed with people. In the morning you see the kids in there with their sitters for story time. You see the kids coming in after school to a lot of times to get on the computers, but also they're sitting there reading or studying in groups. And I don't feel compelled to change the way I write. I think I think a lot of people still like the tactile experience of the book. At the end of the day, though, it is also content, so I actually don't mind if the book is being read on a Kindle or some other e-reader or some other way. But it's not going to change my desire to put stories into the world. And even with my own kids, I see that at the end of the day, when they get into bed at night, they want a book. They don't want an e-reader, which is also not good for you to read from at night, because it keeps you up and all of that. But they're 21st century kids, and I don't think it's because of my partner and I think it really is that they prefer to have a book in their hand. And I do think, and we have so many great librarians in the audience, many who I've known for years and years, but I think people would say that there is this energy in the libraries still, thankfully. One thing that I find, even with my own son going into the library, he gets frustrated because if he wants a new book that's popular, there's usually a long wait list for it. So I don't know, I think that's a question of economics in the library, or librarians not realizing that that's going to be a popular book. But when it's something like Diary of a Wimpy Kid, of course it's going to be a popular book. So, but they do, I think if you have a story to tell, don't even think about anything besides getting that story into the world. and then the rest will happen.
How do you feel, how are you able to talk about generally unpopular topics so openly?
What do I have to lose? Right? I mean, at the end of the day, that's the question. And I think one thing that happens is the more we talk about stuff, the more comfortable we get talking about it. But I think I've never been one to want to live my life in fear of anything, really. So I feel like if you're living your life in fear, you're kind of living this half life. So for me, it's about having sometimes harder conversations, but at the end of the conversation, there's the catharsis that comes from us getting together and beginning to have dialogues. And I think, especially in our country, that's so much of the work we need to do is to get into the rooms with people we might not agree with and have conversations, because the way we're moving is we're having these conversations online in groups where everyone agrees with us, right? So we never see what's happening on the outside, and then when something on the outside happens, we're like, how did that happen? Everyone thinks just like I do. And it's like, no, it's not true. So that's how I'm able to do it. I think I don't feel like I have anything to lose, and only something to gain by speaking truth to power and having bigger and harder conversations. There was a question down here too. Oh, okay.
I've read 4 of your books, and I feel like each kindness is really sad. And are you married?
So you said each kindness is really sad, and then you asked if I'm married? Why, do you want to date me? Okay. I have a partner. I'm not married, I have a domestic partner. And each kindness, if you go back and read each kindness again, it'll be interesting. There are 2 things that happen in that book that I did on purpose. When you look at Maya, you'll see that she's actually really a strong kid. Remember when she has the jump rope and they won't play jump rope with her? Do you remember what she does? She jumps around the whole schoolyard without stopping, right? And so it's not like they stopped her from playing jump rope, right? They didn't stop her from doing what she wanted to do. And do you remember when she wanted them to play jacks with her? And they went and played, and she came back and she's like, I bet you can't guess who the new jacks champion of the world is, right? Because if you have no competition, you're the champion. So she's the jacks champion, she didn't stop, and in the end it was Chloe who lost out, right? So you think the next Maya that comes into that classroom, Chloe's gonna treat that way? Yeah, exactly, me either. So I find that books don't always have to have happy endings, but there should be hope. You should have some hope when you close the book. And you should think, and I should say you should think, and my hope as a writer is that the book stays with you and you're thinking about it long after you close the book. But yeah, no, I have my partner is fantastic. She's a doctor. We have 2 fabulous kids, and we live in Brooklyn, and I'm very grateful for my life, and I'm grateful that you read Each Kindness because it's one of my favorites.
So I'm a high school librarian in Knoxville, Tennessee, in a predominantly white, affluent high school. I've been following the We Need Diverse Books movement for quite a while, and appreciate the role that you have played within that. And trying to do my part with having the books, promoting the books. Matt Jalapena came in the fall and really opened the door for that conversation. But recently I've struggled because I have been trying to use book trailers to promote books and get kids involved in books. So I'm going through all these books, matching up what we have, all these trailers. They're all white kids in dystopian worlds. And I'm struggling. And I even went to find When I Was the Greatest. I thought, okay, surely there's a Jason Reynolds. And it was the most bootleg thing you've ever seen. It wasn't from the publisher. And it had, spelling mistakes, everything. And that was the best I could find. And the kids saw right through it. And so my question, I guess, is our fight with the publishers at this point?
So a lot of times, I don't know, when you watch I don't know a lot about the trailers. A lot of times the authors do the trailers themselves, right?
A lot of them were published, they were put together by publishers, and they are glossy, and they are fancy, and they are enticing,
interesting. I didn't know teachers and librarians were using them that way, because it's easy to say to our publisher, make a book trailer for this book. So I mean, I think that's a good point to make, and it's a good thing to maybe bring to the We Need Diverse Books crew. At the same time, it's interesting, because I know you know about Dr. Redeemson's bishop and her whole thing about mirrors and windows and sliding doors. And it's interesting that kids aren't interested in other worlds that way. I mean, Jason Reynolds, When I Was the Greatest, or Ghost, or even Kwame's Crossover, Rita Williams Garcia, or Nicola Yoon. I mean, they're making a movie out of that book, right? So, everything. Oh, okay.
I felt like the lack of diversity, I mean, it's clearly missing, and I searched for hours, and just couldn't find them. And I was discouraged, and I apologized to the classes. You know, I felt like, okay, I'm not giving you a true picture of the good books out there.
Yeah, I don't think book trailers is the way to go to get to them. I mean, sadly, it's sad if that's the only way they can open up to a book. But I am sure that there can be more book trailers. I mean, even the website, you go to Jason's website, he's like total eye candy, right? So it's like, you know, nothing else, you want to look at him. So maybe that's an into it. And then there are always conversations of the writers talking about their work. Okay, thank you. Right here in the blue shirt.
If you were not a writer, what would you be?
If I was not a writer, well, I always say that I would play for the New York Knicks, but I think it's Ole Miss now. I always wanted to play basketball. And so I'm just thinking in terms of like, if I had my dream job, I feel like writing's my dream job. You know, I can't imagine not doing this. I really love it that much. And even when I hate it, even when the writing's going bad and I'm on deadline, even when I have to write the talk, I still love it. But my other dream job would have been to play football probably, or to, you know, teach. I mean, I taught a little bit, but I think writing is the thing that I love most. I think we have time.
And that's our last question.
Oh, that's our last question. I'm so sorry I wasn't following the clock. Thanks, y'all.
Wow. Thank you so much for your powerful words. Thank you for being here. How lucky are we to be able to host Jacqueline Woodson here in Columbia this evening? Thank you so much. Tonight would not have been possible without the support of the Association of Library Service to Children and the Arbuthnot Honor Lecture Committee. Please help me thank them. The South Carolina State Library was instrumental in tonight's event, and I'd particularly like to thank Lisa Aiken and Denise Lyons, both at the State Library. I can tell you firsthand that Denise and Lisa are the kind of innovative library leaders that the rest of us strive to emulate. Thank you to the South Carolina Host Site Committee, and thank you for joining us this evening. As you proceed out the back, some of you will have tickets for the book signing. If you do, you're going to head out the back and go to the left. If you have a ticket for the reception, you're going to head out the back and turn to the right. In any event, we hope you've enjoyed this evening. I can't imagine that you have not. Thank you so much for being here with us. Safe travels home.